Yo, what's up, everybody? What's going on? It's the Midweek Report. It's the Midweek Report here for July 16, 2025. We got a number of things here to talk about. Right now, what's going down is the whole thing with the media workout or the public workout out here for the fight card for Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios. You're just going to have the undercard fighters that are going to be featured in this. And right now, they have in the ring the former WBC featherweight champion. That's right, Mr. Gary Russell Jr. And I think I saw one person there from the media that I have assigned out there. Pretty much, I think it was there to be with Gary Russell Jr. Hopefully I could get some footage and a couple of pictures here during fight week with Mr. Gary Russell Jr. But he's been in the ring for a good little bit here, showcasing his skills with, as I say, now Big Gary, Gary Allen, Allan Russell, right now. So he's out there doing his thing. He's been, doing the work out there pretty much. He just, stopping with the, the hand drills and things like that. So, that's what they got going on and going down right now. Doing the interview there with was it Ray Flores, something like that. Now you see that Gary Russell Jr. is going to be back going up against Hugo Castaneda. I think what we got Gary Allen there. I think he's gonna put on the body suit there for this or something like that. I don't know, because they got it looks like more that was going on, but yeah, all right. So of course, we have the whole thing there, fight week for 3 fight cards this weekend. Pretty much 3 fight cards this weekend there. As I said, with what's going down with Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios, that's going to be at the MGM Grand Garden Arena there in Las Vegas, Nevada, right? And then you have in the start at Frisco, Texas, right? Jesse Benn Rodriguez versus Fumile Cafu there with the unified titles. They're on the line for that. So you got that as another headlining bout. As I said, in the start in Frisco, Texas, there with Benn Rodriguez, they're undefeated. So is Fumile Cafu. But you're going to have the WBC and the WBO super flyweight titles there on the line. The co-feature bout for that is going to be Diego Pacheco versus Trevor McCumbee. That's going to be a key bout there in the super middleweight division there, 168 pounds. Of course, the co-feature bout for Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios is the rematch between Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu. This time it's going to be for the WBC super welterweight championships. It's not going to be the WBC and WBO super welterweight championships, as the vacant WBO Super Welterweight Championship will be on the line in the following week, as you're going to have Xander Zayas going up against Jorge Garcia Perez at the theater at Madison Square Garden. I might be there, I might not. I'm telling you, like, all of these events back to back to back, and trying to fulfill these these credentials is really, really tough, man. So I said I was able to make it to Ring 3 last Saturday. And then this Saturday, you had the thing there in Vegas. I assigned someone else to cover that. And then for the 26th, weekend of the 26th, next Saturday, we'll see if I'll be able to go over to either New York, or it has a few local events here. So it might end up doing that. So very, very busy summer. Looks like a very busy summer. You know what I mean? But with that being said, we want to focus on, at least for now, focus on what's going on this week, right? And of course, we're here over in the States. And I mentioned 2 of those big events here, as I said, in Las Vegas. It's going on right now with the undercard workouts there at the MGM Grand. And then also there at the start of Frisco, Texas, with Benn Rodriguez going up against Fumile Cafu there for those unified super flyweight titles. But there is something really, really, really big on the line at Wembley Stadium on July 19th. The undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Alexander Usyk will be taking on Daniel Dubois once again. And it will be, yes, for the undisputed heavyweight championships. Now, it's kind of like a little situation similar to what happened early in May, right? When you had Canelo Alvarez, they're going up against William Scholl. What do I mean by that? I mean that Canelo Alvarez was the undisputed super middleweight champion, but then the IBF was IBFing, and they had William Scholl as the mandatory challenger. Canelo said, what, it's IBF, oh well, whatever, So he vacated that belt. William Scholl ended up winning that belt. And so in May, you had Canelo versus William Scholl, and we all know the whole thing about that particular fight. That was just one of the worst fights for the undisputed championships we have ever seen in history. This time around, we shouldn't be seeing that. We're going to see the, of course, two-division undisputed champion Alexander Usyk. They're at 23-0, going up against Daniel Dynamite Dubois there, who's going in there with a record of 22 wins and 2 losses. There with 21 of those wins by way of knockout. Yes, Daniel Dubois did have the knockout loss to Alexander Usyk in 2023, but we all know what went down with that, the backstory with that. Luis Pabon calling that punch a low blow when a lot of people felt like it wasn't a low blow. I said it was like at the belt line, you know what I mean? So you can't necessarily say that it was a low blow, but Luis Pabon just said, the way that I saw it, the angle, it was a low blow, and they didn't have no like type of instant replays, nothing like that. So they went ahead, had Alexander Usyk have like about 5 minutes to recover, and then when he recovered, he had a second win and just ended up beating Daniel Dubois, outpointing him, outboxing him, and getting the stoppage victory, or pretty much a KO victory there, where he just it was almost like he just kept stinging him until Daniel Dubois just went down to one knee, and it was a similar situation to when Dubois fought Joe Joyce, and he ended up going down to a jab to Joe Joyce there. So yeah, those 2 losses that Daniel Dubois has are 2 knockout losses, one of them to Alexander Usyk, but ever since then, he has had wins over Jarrell Miller. People counted him out against Jarrell Miller. And then going up against Philip Hrgovic, he was getting tagged multiple times with the right hand early in that fight. But then, he was able to get that fight stopped due to cuts. And then in the fight in Wembley Stadium last September against Anthony Joshua, he was able to get early knockdowns there, and then in the 5th round was able to get the knockout victory over Anthony Joshua. So his confidence is through the roof for this upcoming bout against Alexander Usyk, and he's kind of had this little mannerism that some people kind of talk about him about, because he has one of those looks like he's a happy-go-lucky type of guy, or does it, just being real with y'all, it seems like he doesn't necessarily process everything that's going on around him or something. He looks like he doesn't process everything that goes around him. So he's like looking like, hey, I'm ready. Let's go. I'm Daniel Dubois. Let's go. And the new, let's go. I'm ready. Hey, how was that? I'm like, oh my God, yo, Daniel Dubois, if he listen, if Daniel Dubois becomes a new undisputed heavyweight champion, I'm sorry, y'all, but man, I mean, yeah, it looks like from a physical standpoint, he may have the look, that could be like, hey, yeah, this guy could be solid and be like a heavyweight champion, like a solid heavyweight champion. But when it comes to like getting on the mic, I don't know, man. I'm ready to go. Yes, me. Yes, me. You ready to go? I'm ready. How about you? You ready? I'm ready. It's absolutely kind of bad in a sense in some cases, but hey, if it gets him by, it gets him by. He's there at 27 years old, 6'5", with a reach of 78. His last bout against Anthony Joshua, he was around 248 pounds weighing in there. So probably around 240, 245 or whatever it is. In the workout that they had earlier, he looked to be, a little bit light, on the feet. So maybe he could be like more of what he was against Jarrell Miller when he weighed in at 239 pounds there against Jarrell Miller, while Jarrell Miller was at, a solid 333 pounds at that particular fight. But I think Jarrell has kind of came down from that. At least it seemed like that when I spoke to him on Saturday night there after the fights at Queens, New York, right? But still with Daniel Dubois, seems like he's been doing a lot under the tutelage of Don Charles there to kind of like hone himself in. But yes, you did see a couple of times where he was getting caught, as I mentioned there against Jarrell Miller early in that fight against Filip Hrgović. In those first couple of rounds, I thought that he was going to get stopped against Filip Hrgović, the way that Hrgović was landing the right hands on Daniel Dubois. But I guess he has, as they say, a chin or whatnot there in that particular front. So now in this bout against Alexander Usyk, I got to see if he just uses that confidence and that come forward style to really overwhelm Usyk early and things like that. Hey. Nah, I'm not going that far. I'm not going that far, okay? I'm not going that far, but I'll say this. Let me see if I can pull it up. I think this is like from part of an article or something, but this is like from the Guardian or whatever it is. So I have to find the exact link to it, but I'm gonna see here if I could share this snippet from the Guardian where they had a write up about Daniel Dubois, and this is part of this thing here. So let me see. All right, so it should be pulled up right here, and it says like Dubois and 6 of his siblings were kept at home by their father and never went to school, and he still seems stunted outside the ring. When I ask if he is finding a way to be his own person while still listening to his dad, Dubois looks confused. Quote, "I don't even know what you mean by that quote." Okay. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop sharing that. I'm gonna stop sharing that, man. Be like, they could. Why do they have to put the exact quote on there? Yeah. I'm sorry, y'all, but listen, this is. He's gonna go out there. I mean, you got Frank Warren, backing him. There, of course, Queensberry Promotions is gonna be there at Wembley Stadium. Of course, he had his last fight there at Wembley Stadium against Anthony Joshua. So confidence is through the roof. That atmosphere, like I said, Wembley Stadium is an experience that, some people, if they're able to, you have to experience it as a boxing fan, or if you're, covering the sport of boxing, you have to be out there at Wembley Stadium to, kind of like grasp that whole experience there. So I was able to do that last year for that fight between Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. Now, with that being, like a big fight there, and Dubois just, some people say, not necessarily processing what's going on for that, then maybe he has the same thing here because it's his second fight there at Wembley Stadium. It's going to be, pretty much a packed house. Over 90,000 will be in attendance for this fight. And now, he has this opportunity to become the undisputed heavyweight championship or the heavyweight champion there. But, it's like everybody that's, with them kind of like grasp what's going on. And he, kind of grasps what's going on, but it's not like he's nervous. He could be like excited and pumped up, but it's not like to the point where he's overly excited or whatever it is. It's just, to a certain level that, it just doesn't get past. Now, for Alexander Usyk, right? Yes, he's been the undisputed champion. Yes, he has the win over Daniel Dubois. He has 2 wins over Anthony Joshua. He has 2 wins over Tyson Fury. And with that win over Tyson Fury, the initial win last year, him becoming the 2-division undisputed champion makes him one of the top pound for pound fighters in the sport right now, and could be considered one of the greatest fighters in the heavyweight division in this particular era, because you have, of course, Fury, Joshua, Wilder, that kind of like defined this era in the heavyweight division. And with Tyson Fury having his wins over Deontay Wilder, then you got, Alexander Usyk having his wins over Anthony Joshua and then defeating Tyson Fury. That makes him pretty much the top guy in the heavyweight era for this particular era. Now, if he's able to get a second win over Daniel Dubois, that would be 2 over Joshua, 2 over Fury, and 2 over Daniel Dubois, pretty much saying that, hey, you got all of these wins against guys that were pretty much at the top 2 to 5 or so in the heavyweight division during your era. And, we haven't necessarily seen a run like that at heavyweight since, the 90s? You know what I mean? Yeah, you could pretty much say Vladimir Klitschko had his run up until he lost to Tyson Fury, but you didn't have those guys that kind of like were clearly, the top guys out there with, Vladimir Klitschko with the in comparison. Well, when you had, also you did have his brother there, Vitaly, there's a WBC champion for a long time, but outside of that, you really didn't see that many other fighters that kind of like stood out within the top 5 of the heavyweight division with those 2 brothers there at the top. So now you got, like I said, Wilder, was the world champion. Joshua was a unified world champion. Fury was, a WBC champion there, but also was a unified champion beforehand, before he, went crazy and all that. But Usyk has wins over all those guys. Now he has this opportunity to have another win against Daniel Dubois, this time in Wembley Stadium in front of 90,000. And if he gets this win, man, don't be surprised if that could be it, because some may say that he's kind of winding down here in this particular part of his career, even though it's just his 24th professional fight. Of course, he had the extensive amateur career, not just, with the, amateurs there, Ukraine, competing with Ukraine in the Olympics, but also, as they say, semi-pro World Series of boxing and all of that. So that's why, when he had his pro debut, it was in 2013. So now it's been like 12, pretty much like 12 years there in the pro game. You know what I mean? So pretty much 2 fights a year or so, kind of like having that pace in here with this one. It's just going to be 1 fight for Alexander Usyk here in 2025, most likely, unless they say, hey, they want to push for Alexander Usyk, if he wins against Daniel Dubois, to face the next mandatory challenger, which it looks like it's going to be Joseph Parker, because Joseph Parker was there as the WBO interim champion. So I think here it's more about Alexander Usyk stamping his name as the number 1 guy by far in the heavyweight division in this particular era. Now, currently right now, he is ranked number 1 in the Boxing Source pound for pound rankings. You do have, Usyk, Inoue, Terrence Crawford. They've been like, 1 through 3 for the past, like, year and a half or so, or at least ever since 2023, I would say. You know what I mean? So with those 3 guys, having some fights coming up, or already have fights, Inoue has already fought against Ramon Cardenas. He has another fight scheduled here against MJ Akmadaliev. Of course, Terrence Crawford is facing Canelo Alvarez on September 13th there at the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas for the undisputed super middleweight titles. So you have Crawford has a great challenge. You have Usyk here against Daniel Dubois. So you can interchange, those 3 as far as like who would be at the top in the pound for pound rankings, at least for me. Now, with Alexander Usyk, if he has another performance here where he's able to stop Daniel Dubois, given that Daniel Dubois has had those stoppage victories over Jarrell Miller and Philip Hergovich and Anthony Joshua since then, hey, you can't. I don't think there really should be much of a debate as to who the top pound for pound fighter would be. Now, as far as like what he would do after that, I did mention Joseph Parker would likely be next, but would it be enough for Alexander Usyk to continue his career? I don't know. He's there currently at 38 years old. 38 heavyweight division. I kind of like said with the era of Fury, Wilder, and Joshua, that particular era is kind of in the back end of their careers. So as of right now, unless if they're like having something where they're fighting each other, then you ain't gonna really see much of them, trying to get back in the mix. There in the heavyweight division. I know that Tyson Fury had claimed that he would be retired, but it looks like they kind of convinced him to try to get back in the ring in 2026, which that would be like a full year plus that he would be out of the ring. So I don't know. But with that being said, Alexander Usyk, he has his performance here against Usyk-Dubois and is able to get another stoppage victory and doesn't really take that much punishment this time around. Then maybe we could see him back towards the end of this year, the beginning of next year against Joseph Parker. But if not, then hey, don't be surprised if he, just says, wraps it up. I mean, I don't know if like Turki Alalshikh, could say, hey, you could have Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury again. We'll have a whole bunch of money, like $100 million or whatever it is, like in those other fights. But if not, then I don't see Alexander Usyk continuing his career after this particular matchup, win or lose. You know what I mean? As far as like, the tail of the tape, I did mention the thing there with Daniel Dubois being there at 6'5" with a reach of 78. But with Alexander Usyk, he's at 6'3", but also with a reach of 78. And he's there as a southpaw, of course. Daniel Dubois is there as an orthodox fighter. Now, the thing with Daniel Dubois is, of course, how he is, like kind of heavy. He's kind of like heavy set, kind of like will really he'll hop up and down and try to move around a little bit, but that'll kind of use a good amount of his energy. So I want to see how he kind of handles himself in the first few rounds in this particular fight. Against Alexander Usyk and seeing if he could try to get to Usyk and nullify his movement. Shout out to Secret Dan Smooth there in the building. It says he's a huge Dubois fan and he expects Dubois to demolish Usyk inside 6 rounds. And he says that Usyk is also looking old. I've heard word that, Usyk has kind of, had a couple of steps behind in camp in preparation for his bout, right, against Daniel Dubois. And as I mentioned, he's there at 38 years old. And 38, in the heavyweight division, yeah, I know that we've had a number of these fighters that kind of been at or around that age that have been world champions. We know about, the great George Foreman. Shout out to George Foreman, rest in power, George Foreman, that won the world title at 45 years old. But with Usyk, he's been in a lot of high caliber fights in the cruiserweight division and in the heavyweight division. And sooner or later it could, end up catching up to him. You know what I mean? And so, with that being said, I got to see what happens here with Alexander Usyk in these first few rounds, particularly how Daniel Dubois approaches him. You know what I mean? Says, hold up. No one in UK and Europe is sleeping on this fight. It already sold 90,000 tickets. It's just Americans. That is why I put this as a title, right? Because with it being in the UK, I know somebody that's out that went out there to London there for the fight week. If I had, man, listen, if I was balling, I would be out there. Okay, I would be out there. All right. I'm not, listen, I know what's going on in Las Vegas. You know what I'm saying? I know what's going down, at Frisco, Texas with Ben Rodriguez. But if I had the money, I'll be out there in the UK. You know how it is. That experience in Wembley Stadium, you can't necessarily match it. Like the walkway going to Wembley Stadium, that's just, unmatched. At least it's unmatched to me. You know what I mean? And if I was able to get out there, I had word that I would have been taken care of. I would have been in there, media row, press row, or something like that. I would have been taken care of. So hey, I got next time I'll set it up and I'll get in. I'll get there to one of those UK fights, man. Secret. He says Usyk is a fast switch boxer. Relies on reflexes and stamina. They're the ones to grow old overnight the quickest. Yeah, yeah. You know how it is with reflexes. With a lot of the fighters that have been around or at the top of the pound for pound rankings there in the past. I'll give you an example. Roy Jones Jr. When Roy Jones, he went up there, of course, competing in middleweight, super middleweight, and then eventually became the heavyweight champion of the world. You know what I mean? With his win over John Ruiz. Then he went down to light heavyweight, back down to light heavyweight, and you kind of seen that those reflexes kind of go down a little bit in his first encounter there against Antonio Tarver, and then we all seen what happened in the second bout. Got any excuses tonight, Roy? And ever since then, his reflexes went out the window. And when you lose your reflexes, that's like your defense being able to move around and kind of use that instead of blocking. And with Roy Jones Jr., he didn't really have that much experience being able to block, catch, and shoot and all that type of stuff. So a number of the fighters that he fought in the tail end of his career that you wouldn't expect to really beat him were able to actually beat him. Like that Glenn Johnson scene still sticks with me, man. Still does, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. Got to 34 and lost the reflexes, and now that was it. It was a wrap for Roy Jones Jr. So now we got to see what's happening here with Alexander Usyk, and we got to see how his foot movement is, because that is his key to victory for a lot of the fighters that he's been able to face. I talked about it, years back when he had his initial fight against Anthony Joshua. Is that him being a southpaw, him being able to move at the right time and get out of the pocket, get out of the line of sight for his opponent. That gave him that option to, have the exit, not only the exit route, but also an opening to, line in with the left hand or just go around with the right. You know what I mean? So I got to see if he's able to still do that against Daniel Dubois here. Like I said, both of them have the same reach. So it's not like, Dubois, even though he's a little bit taller, would have the reach advantage. He doesn't. And now what I got to see is if Usyk is going to have the same speed with his hands. Timely movement is one thing, but the hands is going to be something else. And if he has kind of lost his step a little bit, is he going to try to initiate clinches more, to try to tie up Daniel Dubois? Because Daniel Dubois, of course, yeah, I'm ready to go, ready to fight, ready to go, let's go, and to do, that's Daniel Dubois for you. But he's going to be in there to, really try to hurt Alexander Usyk and make sure that there is no doubts whatsoever that he could get this win. I thought that he was doing a good job focusing to the body early in their first fight. It's just that, Luis Pabon was, kind of like, watching them or something, so to speak. But you know what, though? It kind of goes to a little bit of a pattern of sorts with Ukrainian fighters. They don't necessarily like being hit to the body that much. We saw, how Lomachenko was acting there against Orlando Salido and a couple of other fighters. So hey, we got to see here who they're gonna end up having as the referee for this rematch, because it ain't gonna be Luis Pabon. Nope, they ain't gonna be cool with all that. Said Dubois at his peak now. Dubois mentally. You know what? Let me go to the next comment. All right, it says Dubois is doing the same to Usyk as he was doing to AJ. Well, not backing down. Yeah, it's saying not backing down, but the thing with Joshua is like he's more of like an intimidating type of guy. But with Dubois, he doesn't necessarily. It's not like he. How do I put it? Because I said it like with when Dubois fought Jarrell Miller. it's not like he's necessarily snapping back at him. It's almost like whatever's being said to him is going past him. Man. So hey, this time around, hey, if he's not, properly listening to it, but it looks like he's having fun with it. If you saw like the face off there from yesterday, when you had Usyk there, of course Usyk will be like, and then then the boy, they talk about Usyk, 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 and then the boy's like, and the new, and the new, and the new. How about that? So he's not, listening to all of that. He's kind of like, playing along and having fun with it. It seems like, you know what I mean? It says what, 2 standoffers for the first fight. Yeah, he won't do that this time. Yeah, nah, he won't. He won't. Like I said, Don Charles has him prepared. I think Don Charles has him properly prepared for this fight this time around. And that, he's going to be a lot more, I would say, prepared, a lot more prepared for what Usyk can be doing there over the course of this bout. So, that's why I'm really intrigued to see what happens here within these first few rounds, because I think that's going to be really big on his part. The thing with Daniel Dubois is that once you get him to the back half of the fight, then, you might have issues, or he might have issues, so to speak. The time that you didn't necessarily see that, at least here recently, was in his fight against Jarrell Miller, because Jarrell Miller wasn't able to wear him down to a point where it could get real bad for Daniel Dubois, like I say, in the 7th or 8th round. By that 7th or 8th round, you've seen Daniel Dubois kind of like turned it around and was able to, get more out of himself at that particular point. And then he was the one that ended up wearing down Jarrell Miller and then had the referee step in and stop the bout in the 10th round. So now here we got to see if he's going to be able to, really try to respond to what Usyk is going to do. If he's able to catch him with some good counter shots there, and of course he's going to be the one with the power. So if he is able to catch him with some good power shots, then yeah, he could really affect Alexander Usyk there. Like, I have it, still as like a toss up. I usually do picks for it, but I don't necessarily, I can't necessarily see, where this particular fight would be at this point. From some of the odds that I've seen, they still have like Alexander Usyk be, fairly favored, like at minus 340 on DraftKings. It looks like at minus 340, and then Daniel Dubois at plus 260. On FanDuel, from what they're saying on FanDuel, it might be at Alexander Usyk at minus 460. So almost a 5-1 favorite against Daniel Dubois there at plus 320. So they still, have Usyk as a pretty good favorite. It's not like it's close to even or anything. It's not like Alexander Usyk is like a 2-1 favorite or 2.5-1. No, it's, more than 3-1 at the very least. So they're still saying that, with the experience level of Alexander Usyk, him having those fights against, Tyson Fury, against Anthony Joshua, having that win over Daniel Dubois, that kind of like makes a difference there. And for me, with that first fight, I really, felt like, that maybe Dubois was standoffish in that first fight. And he kind of like his patience, like there wasn't much patience after what happened with the controversial call by Luis Pabon, because he was able to, to stay composed and, just get his bearings back and, not have that be too much on his mind, then he could have still, been able to work on Alexander Usyk and hurt him again. But no, it almost seemed like he was too timid to try to get back to the body, because he wouldn't know if they would, try to say if a borderline shot would be, a low blow or whatever it is. So I think here he's gonna, kind of like just, go, as they say, balls to the wall. You know what I mean? And I think it's gonna be almost similar to what Joshua was doing in the rematch against Alexander Usyk in the first few rounds. You know what I mean? So he's gonna make a dedicated attack to the body, and he might try to ignore the offense that's coming from Alexander Usyk at first, as long as he's able to land to the body. You know what I mean? Shout out to Coach Eddie here in the building, man. What's going on with you, man? Daniel Dubois wins by vicious knockout. Yeah, I've seen a couple of those picks there for Daniel Dubois to get the win by knockout here. I'm just seeing if he's able to have a great start early, and see if he has the ability to cut off the ring there against Alexander Usyk. Because like I said, it's more about the timely movement. I mean, you can't necessarily see my feet, but as I have my right hand lead, this is like my right hand lead if I'm a southpaw. So I'm throwing with the left. I have the right foot. The right foot is lead foot. So I'm able to, properly see if I can have my right foot, if I'm Alexander Usyk, on the outside of the left foot of Daniel Dubois. You know what I mean? So I'll be able to have those exit points. So I'll be able to step back if I need to step back. And as I said, with the exit points, I have my exit point because my left foot will be my back foot. So I'll be able to step off to the side. Now I'm going to, currently I'm going to rotate here. So if I'm rotating off, Dubois is going to be looking this way, and I already had the exit point, so I already had the lead right, and then I could go over with the left. You know what I mean? So for Daniel Dubois, if he can have his lead foot, which would be the left foot in his case, on the outside, and try to limit the exit points of Alexander Usyk, then I think he will be able to wear down Alexander Usyk and get a stoppage. Now, for me, the punch is always, it's always that left hook to the body. Throw the left hook to the body. Give them a message that if you try to get away from me on this front, I'm going to throw that left to the body so that you don't have that instance, because of course, if I'm Daniel Dubois and I'm orthodox, so of course, here, this is my left, so this is my lead hand. If Usyk is trying to go off to my left, I throw the left hook to the body to prevent it, because he's not going to go to my strong hand because he knows that I'm the stronger fighter. So Usyk is going to try to get away from that strong hand and try to go to my left. So I'm going to throw that left hook to the body to say, hey, oh, you think you have this exit point? No, not necessarily. Or I'm going to try to throw that straight left to the body initially. You know what I mean? So that's the thing about it. Shout out my guy Steph Brown in the building, man. What's going on there with you, man? Yeah, hit the like button, share and subscribe. Also, accept as I said, contributions to the box source. You see the Cash App on there, or whatever it is. And it says also big difference with Dubois last few fights is that he's gained some hand speed and foot movement, and he's added things to his game too. Yeah. If y'all have seen, a little bit of a workout that he had here, open workout today, you can see that he's kind of been more mobile with his feet and kind of up and down jumping with his feet too. So you can see that he's incorporating more of a bouncy style. You know what I mean? Instead of being more flat-footed. Because if you're flat-footed against an Alexander Usyk, yeah, you're gonna give him a whole lot of opportunities to be able to exit out of the pocket and be out of line of sight and things like that. So with Usyk, it's all about timely movement, timely punching, and sometimes with him having a second win, because we've seen there Alexander Usyk on all of those, pretty much most of those fights that I mentioned. Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, at least with the first fight, Daniel Dubois, that he's had those times of adversity and he was able to respond to those and be able to get the win. Now here it's more about Daniel Dubois saying, you know what, even if I have to throw caution to the wind, I'm going to have to do that in order to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the thing. He fights through when things get tough, unlike in the past. I mean, that was his story, that you had the fight against Joe Joyce. You had the fight against Kevin Lorena, and I don't care to this day, that fight, they should have called that fight. They should call that fight. He got knocked down a few times. They could have called that fight, especially with it being in the UK. They kind of do those things, but they kept it going. He was able to get back into it and was able to stop Kevin Lerena. But still, you have those multiple times of adversity there for Daniel Dubois, and he was still able to get through all of those and score those wins, at least the last three after his loss to Alexander Usyk. You know what I mean? Well, at least in that fight against Anthony Joshua, he didn't really deal with much adversity there in that particular fight until that part in the fifth round where he may have got stunned, or it looked like he did, but then he quickly collected himself and he kind of baited Anthony Joshua there for that last knockdown. So looking to see how it is. I told y'all the odds. They have, Usyk at above 3-1 favorite at the very least, which, kind of is surprising to me given, Dubois' level of confidence, and that, it's something with Alexander Usyk having those multiple tough bouts against Anthony Joshua and against Tyson Fury. That's sometimes that could take a lot out of you. You know what I mean? So I would think that, with Dubois on a high like that in his trajectory, that would kind of like have him be a little bit closer in the odds there. But I don't know. I mean, but that's that's the gist of what I have there for this particular fight. I think it's a really big bout there for people to look forward to in Wembley Stadium. I know it's Frank Warren Queensberry card. And just to be honest with y'all, outside of the main event and the co-feature bout that has Lawrence Okoli against, that's right, Kevin Lerena, I have no idea who these other fighters are. I'm just being real with y'all. I have no idea who they are. Okay, so there you go. Right, but just That's right, Joe. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go. I'm ready. You like that? That was that? Did I do good? Did I do okay? Yes, I'm ready. Let's go. Oh man. But yeah, that's gonna be something to look forward to on July 19th. At least here in the US, it's gonna be in the afternoon. So you'll be able to check it out in the afternoon and whatnot. So that's gonna be really, really good there. Secret Dead Smooth says this. It's what I hate about boxing fans. They're always going on about Dubois quitting and don't allow that the boxer matures and gets mentally stronger with age. He's still 27. Yeah, he's still 27. That fight with Joe Joyce, I said then that, with Queensberry, they kind of like match up their fighters when they're about 10-0, 11-0, 12-0, and they match them the same record. So after that, then they're trying to see if they could get to that next level. So that's almost like what I say, a British Commonwealth title type level, and then then a regional, like a WBC regional champion level. That's how Queensberry kind of like matches up a lot of their fighters. So when they do go up in a higher level, that they're properly prepared to have those fights and wins. And hey, I mean, we just seen a clear example here last Saturday with Hamza Shiraz against Edgar Berlanga, didn't we? So there you go. All right. So yeah, that kind of like is what we got for Wembley Stadium for July 19th. And it is kind of like the way that the card is kind of like the similar situation to last year. Well, at least for me, it would have been, because I didn't get there until probably like when there were like 4 fights left on the card or something like that. Like when Mark Chamberlain or whoever it was fighting, I missed all of that. So I probably like seen 3 or 4 fights, 3 fights before the main event there at Wembley Stadium. So I mean, it's probably gonna be the same situation here for a lot of the fans. You know what I mean? They ain't gonna be rolling up in until probably the third. I'll probably say the third fight, because they got 6 fights on the card, it looked like. So yeah, so that's what they got going on with that. Now, next up on the docket here, real quick, from last weekend. Okay, yes, we did have Ring 3 at Louis Armstrong Stadium in Queens, New York. Yes, we had 4 fights that were on the DAZN pay-per-view. Okay, we had David Morrell Jr. there against Imam Katayev. Next, we had Alberto Puello versus Superreo Matias. And then next up, we had Ash Shakur Nafisa Heath Stevenson there against William Cepeda. And yes, the main event there, as I mentioned, with Hamza Shiraz and Edgar Berlanga. All of them were on DAZN pay-per-view. But the problem was, looks like Turki Alalshikh didn't necessarily want it on DAZN pay-per-view. He just wanted it on regular DAZN, but looked like the representatives at DAZN were saying, like, nah, with all of the, the money that's behind it and all this type of stuff and the resources and things like that, we're going to have to put it on pay-per-view. Turki was kind of like, but I'm the one paying for the fight purses for these guys, so y'all wouldn't have to worry about it. So why y'all still having it on pay-per-view? So what did Turki do? He had Ring Magazine, who he purchased, show each of those fights, all 5 of them, because he had the Susumi fight also, right? He showed all 5 of those fights on the Ring Magazine YouTube page the next day for $3.99. Now, this kind of like goes to what he's kind of been doing for a number of the events that he's had, is that a lot of those fights have been available the next day for $3.99. So he has worked out something reportedly there where he, along with DAZN, have worked out a deal to where from the Ring 4 event on, you will see those events not be on pay-per-view. Yep, that's right. You won't see those events on pay-per-view. So I'm going to see here, I'm going to see if I could share it, right? All right, bet. So let me see if I can run it here on the screen because it's posted on the Ring Magazine Instagram page, right? All right, bet. So let's see here what they got. All right, so it says here, Turki Alalshikh announces partnership with DAZN that there will be no more pay-per-view pricing for all Riyadh season and ring events, starting with Ring 4 on November 22nd. All events will be available for free for all DAZN subscribers. Man. So, looks like a pretty good move there from Turki Alalshikh in partnership with DAZN. And I say, hey, I don't mind that at all. If you've seen what they have in store for November 22nd, that's going to be a very good card. What do we have? We have David Benavidez there against Anthony Yard. We got Devin Haney versus Brian Norman Jr., right? We got, Abdullah Mason versus Sam Noakes, right? That's going to be for the vacant WBO lightweight title. You're also scheduled to have Jesse Bam Rodriguez going up against Fernando Martinez if Bam Rodriguez gets his win over Fumulele Cafu on Saturday, and we going up against Fernando Martinez there, and that should be another unification bout there, as you have Fernando as the WBA champion, right? So you're gonna have all of that, and it's supposed to add one more fight as Super Matias, who is the newly crowned WBC super lightweight champion, right? He is going to be going in there against the newly named WBC mandatory challenger. Okay. And with that one, for me, I'm like, oh, okay. Dalton Smith. All right. If y'all caught the Boxing Source podcast, I did have a lot to say about Dalton Smith. Okay. So if y'all go back, I don't know, I might clip it, and then y'all be able to see it there, man. Yeah. So yep, that's it, man. No paywall. Well, I mean, you got the the whole thing with the monthly charge for DAZN or yearly charge for DAZN or whatever it is. But hey, at least but it's not that much different than having a thing there with Amazon Prime. The only difference with DAZN is that DAZN is more of a sports-based app. You'll see like a lot of football. You can see other sporting events on DAZN. whether you're in the U.S. or outside the U.S. But a lot of people know it, at least here for boxing. So at least you'll be able to have that opportunity to watch a fight card of that caliber there for Ring 4 with right now 5 fights on the docket. That'll make it really big. Now, some people were hoping that maybe the fights in September 13th would be like that, but ain't no way, dog. Not with that much money that's riding on it. Not with it being at Allegiant Stadium. No, there was no way that they could make that free 99. Not in the, but I mean, hold up. But the whole thing with that one is that's on Netflix. So if you have that on Netflix, right, with Canelo versus Crawford, now you have these events here on the DAZN, and this is regular DAZN. That kind of like, gives boxing fans a better, option or whatnot to, kind of like seeing more events here for the sport. So I think that would be good for the sport in general there. So you got that, right? All right, there. So with that being said, right, I'd like to see how long this would last. I mean, we've kind of like had conversations in the past about, a number of the events that have been put together by Turki Alalshikh through Riyadh season and the entertainment division there for Saudi Arabia, So does this mean that one, either you're going to see more of these events in Saudi Arabia as Ring 4 is going to be in Riyadh, or is it to the point where they could mix and match and have these different events in different places and still have that not be on pay-per-view? That remains to be seen. You know what I mean? So I like to see how it turns out after Ring 4, because that's not till November. Now we want to see if they have something like say, for example, if they have a card in December, in January, February, or something like every month at the very least, and then still see if they could keep with that no pay-per-view type thing there for it. So we'll see how that goes. Now, the other major topic I had there on the docket stems from, of course, last Saturday. You had Shakur Stevenson there with his win over Williams Zepeda, 2 scores of 10 rounds to 2, 1 score of 11 rounds to 1. Something that I expected going into the fight because I really didn't see Zepeda having a real path to victory there against Shakur Stevenson, unless Shakur Stevenson like really slipped up. Shout out to Z Patino there in the building, man. What's going on? Salute to you. But after that, Shakur Stevenson was on the Ariel Helwani Show. And it was also on there with Conor Benn. Conor Benn was in attendance at Ring 3 there at Queens, New York. And I don't know why. I just don't know why. Because, I mean, there was supposed to be, something in reference to, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. But, yeah, the thing about that is they're supposed to be scheduled. Supposed to be for September or whatever it is, right? It's supposed to be for September 20th, if I'm not mistaken, something like that, right? Because it's supposed to be following Canelo Crawford. But now, it almost seems like they don't know what's going on with it. And now what we have, it looks like a recent update from Ring Magazine about an hour ago, saying that sources have informed the Ring that both Riyadh season and Salah are no longer involved in a rematch between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. So it says the Ring has no involvement with the Eubank Benn rematch. Yeah, I was going to share that here real quick. I'll just go ahead and share it. You know what I mean? This is almost like similar to, what's actually happening this weekend with that rematch between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. Some would have thought that Riyadh season would have been involved in it in some capacity or anything like that. No, it's completely Queensbury that's putting up that event there at Wembley Stadium. You know what I mean? So here, with this particular rematch, of course, they had their first fight there in April of this year, at the end of April of this year at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But now, even though some would still be interested in this rematch, they say, hey, Salah's not involved. Riyadh season's not involved. I don't know if they're going to be sponsoring. They were supposed to sponsor something, put in some money to sponsor. They ain't doing that. So there you go. All right, bet. Secret Dance Move got his thoughts on this upcoming fight between Pacquiao and Barrios, saying, think Manny will do good against Barrios. Even if we get 10% of peak Manny, I think that would be enough to beat a one-dimensional Barrios. I don't see it, man. I don't see it. Just being honest, man, I don't see it. Like, if there's like any way that Emmanuel Dapidran Pacquiao wins over Mario Barrios this weekend, you might as well throw the whole welterweight division away. I'm sorry. You might as well throw the whole welterweight division away. Let me tell y'all something. And this kind of like is going to something that I had a conversation with one of the people on the live chat here right now. It's something when you have to bring up Manny Pacquiao to fight a standing world champion in the welterweight division in order to get any type of buzz within that division. Yeah, I know Jerron Boots and his moves up to 154. But outside of that, yeah, you got Brian Norman, and he's kind of occupied there, as I mentioned, going up against a former fighter at 135 and 140 there. Kind of like, how, Terrence Crawford moved up from 135 and 140. But, yeah, Devin Haney ain't nowhere near Terrence Crawford, okay? Just being real. So you got WBO champion there occupied. WBA and IBF titles are vacant. So that means leaves the WBC. And, as I be saying, the IBF be IBFing, so do the WBC. And y'all know the WBC has been having a lot of criticism over the years for multiple things. This here with Manny Pacquiao is something that is, really out there, okay? Y'all follow the WBC. The WBC is supposed to be going under a certain protocol. Y'all know what it is. And they're supposed to, have a certain thing that's supposed to happen, for fights of this magnitude, world title fight. As of right now, just saying it right now, I haven't seen much about it. Y'all could, go to conclusions. Y'all could see what it is. But hey, this is what it takes in order for them to have an event of this magnitude. It is what it is. That's boxing for you. That's the business of boxing for you. And that's how things, break out. But even outside of that, I still favor Barrios to get this win. Actually, after about 4 or 5 rounds, it should be all Mario Barrios. It should be. It should be all Mario Barrios. So that's how I call it. That's what it is. It's going to be all Mario Barrios. I think it's going to be all Sebastian Fundora too, because Tim Tszyu, I feel like he got beat up. Last year, he got beat up in those fights. And I feel like Sebastian Fundora got better after his fight against Tim Tszyu, while Tim Tszyu, he got just beat up by Backroom. And then he had the whole thing there. That just was an exhibition what he had, man. Over there in Australia, that was an exhibition fight for him, man. So I really don't see him, doing much to Sebastian Fundora in this one. I don't. I got it as a stoppage win for Sebastian Fundora in this rematch. I do, So Tim Tszyu fighting Joey Spencer a few months ago, they ain't helping that much at all, So with that being said, I got Sebastian Fundora by TKO, and it could be by round 5 or 6. Yeah, I could say round 5 or 6. TKO Sebastian Fundora. Of course, I feel like one of the fights of the night is going to be the rematch between Isaac Pitbull Cruz and Angel Fierro. Their fight that they had on February 1st at T-Mobile Arena. Oh man, that was great stuff. That was great stuff. And I feel like it's going to be great stuff here again. I think that was like a great match, great matchmaking on that part. So they say, hey, we're going to run it again. And I think it's going to be another great fight. Another great fight for them. And, I probably might lean towards Isaac Cruz getting another win. So you got that. And then, Brandon Figueroa against Joet Gonzalez. Figueroa for the win. All right, so there you go with that. All right, so Just had those picks all there. And, like I said, the whole thing with Conor, Benn, and Shakur Stevenson on Ariel Helwani Show, I ain't like, what was the point of that? It's almost like they you know how they do as far as like with Turki Alalshikh, Riyadh season or whatever it is, and they try to make those matchups right off the rip, going off of fights or before fights or whatever it is. Okay, we understand that, but there is no point whatsoever for Shakur Stevenson, who is the standing WBC lightweight champion, to face a guy that supposedly supposed to compete at welterweight. Had his last fight, well over that against Chris Eubank Jr., around like 160 pounds. So he's like 150 something, 156. He weighed in at 156 against Chris Eubank Jr. And he hasn't been fighting at 147 pounds since 2022. So you expect a guy that hasn't been at around 147 since 2022 to get back down to 147 for a fight against a Shakur Stevenson who is competing at 135 pounds and probably would be competing at 135 pounds for at least a couple more years. Nah, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see the point in it. Just not have that, in there, especially when you got something coming up in November for the vacant WBO lightweight title. And if a certain person wins, and that is Abdullah Mason, you could have a fight between Abdullah Mason and Shakur Stevenson in 2026. Because the way things are looking, I don't know about this Levante Tank Davis thing, man. I don't know. It ain't looking good. As of right now, it ain't looking good. So with that being said, it almost seemed like if like, say for example, if they got word that maybe this Tank Davis thing might not happen late this year, if he would have had this fight against Lamont Rose Jr. in August, then maybe turn around and have a fight in December, it ain't looking all too good. So then what else is out there? Yeah, you do have Floyd Schofield coming off his win over Tim Farmer, but it looks like, they got plans for Floyd Schofield Jr. So now what do you do here if you're a Shakur Stevenson? I don't know. Maybe find someone within the rankings and say, hey, I'll make a defense against, hey, they got somebody else that's there ranked high, but he ain't necessarily like a mandatory of sorts, and it won't be for another year, and that's Andy Cruz. So who else will be out there for Shakur Stevenson to fight there in the lightweight division? There ain't that many options out there for him. So I guess that's why they came up with this idea of trying to say, hey, maybe we could make a fight between Shakur Stevenson and Conor Benn. For what? Nobody asks for it. Nobody demands that fight. Nobody wants that fight. So why even bring it up? Makes no sense. You know what I mean? So there's that, man. That's what I had on that front, because I just didn't understand why in the world they would come up with that type of idea for a fight and think that fight fans would kind of like gravitate towards it. There's no point in it. You know what I mean? So that's what I had on that topic. Of course, as I mentioned, there's a lot of action here this weekend. Be sure to catch up all of those fights. He says Keyshawn versus Conor Benn would make more sense, but at the same time, it's still stupid. Yeah, it's still stupid. Yeah, Keyshawn, we don't even know what's going to be up with Keyshawn. I mean, hey, he's supposed to be, one of those ring ambassadors, and we all know what happened, for the fight that was supposed to go down between Keyshawn Davis and Edwin De Los Santos, with Keyshawn weighing in at 139.4 pounds for a lightweight title fight. Ended up losing that WBO lightweight title. So now we got to see what he's going to do here in the super lightweight division. And I gotta see, what's up with all that, because, him, kind of being affiliated with Top Rank and given what's going on with Top Rank here at this current juncture, we have to see like where he would be at this point. You know what I mean? So I think if there's any chance, hopefully there's little chance, if there's a certain fighter that's still holding a world title there in that particular division, that the fight that one of these guys has been asking for, he finally gets it. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen either, given that he ended up, having that whole overweight type deal. But if we could have Keyshawn Davis versus Teofimo Lopez this year, yeah. I don't see why. Hey, I don't know. We should still have that fight. That's the fight that Keyshawn has been calling out for since 2023. So why not go ahead and have it right now? Hey, look, Teofimo Lopez is looking like he ain't willing to be, stepping in the ring to fighting anybody. We had the whole thing there. Yes, he defended his title against Arnold Barboza Jr., but he wanted a certain amount of money to fight a Jerome Business. He wanted a certain amount of money to fight Devin Haney. You know what I mean? He didn't necessarily want to fight Subriel Matias. So what else is out there for Teofimo Lopez, at least right now? Y'all might as well go ahead and have that fight between Teofimo Lopez and Keyshawn Davis. Hey, y'all want to, mix and match and have these fights, and that might, spark some interest. That's the fight right there, Turki Alalshikh. Go ahead and have that going down. All right. Oh, snap, man. All right. We got a panelist here, a great panelist here to join us. I guess, we'll see if we can talk more about the fights coming up this weekend. He'll have, great takes on what's going on this particular weekend here. So we want to hear from our guy, the Boxing Academic, man. What's going on, Boxing Academic?
What's up, JR? I know I missed a few days, man. How you doing?
Yeah, man. Catching up on a few things and everything like that, man. So, we got a big fight weekend, a lot of action, a lot of key fights here coming up. Undisputed heavyweight title on the line in Wembley Stadium. Of course, you got Manny Pacquiao coming back against Mario Barrios for the WBC welterweight title. So a lot to look forward to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A lot to look forward to. That's the boxing weekend that you want to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, in some cases, yeah, but if you're, like someone like me that could potentially try to go to some of these events to cover these events, it's almost like you have to pick which event you want to be able to go to or which event you want to apply for and see if you'll be able to be approved and get out there to it. But at least for me this time around, I couldn't necessarily make it out to these events, so had to chill out and be home side this weekend here. So is there anything that you're looking forward to here this weekend?
So Dubois and Usyk and Pacquiao and the dude who got beat by Keith Thurman. Barrios, yeah. My bad. I remember Keith Thurman before I remember Barrios. My bad.
Yeah.
The only thing I gotta say is the body snatcher. Daniel Dubois needs to be the body snatcher. Whenever he start his jab, whenever he finished with his right hand, he need to always finish that with the body snatcher. He need to always hit Usyk to the body.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously be safe about it, but watch Andre Ward. Like, that's your game plan. Like, you fighting somebody who does something exceptional, go to their body.
Yep.
And that's how he win. Like, who's the ref for the fight?
They haven't said who the ref is for the fight, but I know who the ref isn't for the fight, and that's Luis Pabon.
Yeah, so I'm almost sure the next ref is going to be somebody who will be tolerant of, like, and although most people will say that shot that he landed wasn't borderline, like it was a legit shot, because of that fan sort of backlash, you're going to probably have somebody who's a bit more lenient with it. And if Dubois team smart, they know what they need to do. You need to go to the body. Will Usyk have a letdown? That's a question. I don't think so. I know other people. I think Joe said it that he getting old or something like that. I feel like I might have heard him say that. Don't quote me.
Yeah.
But I will say I think the people are with Daniel Dubois because he's an underdog story. Obviously, he's failed. He done came back and made it to the pinnacle. That's you gotta love that. And then you got Usyk who's always a winner. Usyk is a classy guy, so everybody respects him for that. But I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Dubois won. I'd actually probably be happy.
He'd be able to, like I said, in what is it? 25 professional fights it would be for Daniel Dubois that he would be the world champion. So yeah, 20. This is going to be his 25th pro bout, and yes, he had KO losses too, as I mentioned there, Joe Joyce and the Alexander Usyk. But this time around, he could, get this win and become the undisputed heavyweight champion there, man. And he said, like, you know what? Yes, I'm the champ. I'm ready. Let's go. Yes, in his face. I don't know, man. But it's going to be a real event out there at Wembley Stadium for that, man. Secret Dance Mover is out there in the UK, and he says he's a bit biased there for this fight against with Daniel Dubois and Alexander Usyk there. But yeah,
I had lost faith in Dubois at one point because he quit a few times, but neither here nor there. It's what have you done for me lately? And lately, he's shown us the champion that he is.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope it's just a good fight.
Yep. I have to see, what's going on in those first 3 rounds there, particularly with Daniel Dubois. And I want to see I want to see that improvement from Daniel Dubois against a fighter the caliber of Alexander Usyk there. He's Secret Dance Move says there, but you don't think that it go to the body the first couple of rounds instead of have to disguise it like he did last time. Yeah, I think he's going to, kind of go high and then, look like he's going high, but then like go, to the body off that. So try to feint upstairs and then go to the body there with all of that. So we might see that here on that front. That guy says, nah, you can't remember the D. Man, yeah. So you do have that. And I think, brother Steph is, kind of like catching up and things like that for this particular midweek report. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's for that card, it's the only fight on the card that I'm really paying a lot of attention to. Although with Lawrence Okoli, I think it is, they're going up against Kevin Lorena. We have to see the progression of Okoli there in the heavyweight division. I think he's currently the WBC silver champion there in the heavyweight division, and he has, I think, a number 1 ranking there in the WBC right now at this point. Yeah, so he could potentially be one of those guys to eventually fight for the world title there in 2026. So I'll see how that goes. You know what I mean? Secret Dead Smooth says, I hope Manny does well against Barrios. A lot of people do.
If Manny can't do it, no one can.
Yeah. Oh man, that would definitely be something there, man. But yeah, I have to see what Manny does in those first few rounds, and if he doesn't, if he can't really do much against Barrios after like round 4 and 5, it could get pretty ugly. It could get pretty ugly for him. But I think Mario Barrios is really trained, really hard for this bout. So I'd like to see, how he responds here, because he hasn't had a bout since going up against Abel Ramos in November, and you know how he got knocked down in that fight against Abel Ramos, and took a good amount of punishment there over the course of the last half of the fight, and it still ended up being a draw. So I don't know if it's like a quick twitch Manny Pacquiao there in those first few rounds, and that'll give a number of those fight fans hope, because a lot of those that bought them high price tickets to be on the ring floor. You know, they're there to support Manny Pacquiao, so it's gonna be interesting there, man. What it says, I don't want to see another Tyson Jake Paul situation there in this. Yeah, I don't know, man. What I'm seeing is y'all know how Manny Pacquiao was able to perform against Oscar De La Hoya. I'm like, you might see the same thing here, but this time Mario Barrios doing it to Manny Pacquiao. So we got to see how that goes on that front. But you got that. You got, the co-feature bout, as I said, WBC Super Welterweight title there on the line with Sebastian Fundora defending the WBC belt against Tim Tszyu. I got Fundora. I know that people are looking forward to it, but I got Fundora. I think Tim Tszyu took like a whole lot of punishment over those two fights in 2024. And his fight that he had against Joey Spencer, man, that was, come on, man. That was just something there where it was a showcase fight for Tim Tszyu, man. You know what I mean? And, a lot of people felt like, it was going to be Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman. But I guess with this opportunity opening up for Tim Tszyu to get a world title here in this sense, then he jumped at that opportunity instead of going up against Keith Thurman. I don't know. Maybe he felt like Keith Thurman fight would still be available, for him later on down the line. I mean, I don't know. Because if Tim Tszyu wins this, hey, they might end up having a rematch once again. So it could be 3 fights with Fundora and Tim Tszyu. So, yeah, I don't know how that whole thing with Keith Thurman would kind of like present itself, but who knows? They might have another big fight on slate for Keith Thurman, but maybe another highly ranked contender there in the 154-pound division for that. It says Okoli versus Lorena is a funny one. You know what? It could be, that could be a trap for Lawrence Okoli. It could be a trap for Lawrence Okoli. It could be. He's there at 21-1 with 16 wins by way of knockout. But I feel like this one, it could be a trap. So he had to be careful with this one. So I have to see, how Okoli treats the first 3 rounds there against Kevin Lorena and see if he's able to get through that. And then after that, he might be able to get a decision on that. Secret Dance Move is picking Tim Tszyu in this fight. Depends on if Tszyu has fully recovered from Backroom's fight or not. I don't think he has. I don't. I mean, I did, have a little bit of a commentary about Tim Tszyu, being out, working out, having a media workout and things like that. But also, you got Sebastian Fundora had that interview with Sebastian Fundora there leading into this fight against Tim Tszyu. So I feel like Sebastian Fundora is kind of like improved. I thought he improved a lot, like within that particular fight against Tim Tszyu last year, because usually with Sebastian Fundora, he's like 6'5", 6'6", or whatever it is, but he don't necessarily use that reach a lot. So he doesn't. It's not like he uses a jab and uses it as a line of defense. After the whole thing with getting popped and knocked around a little bit by Tim Tszyu, and then Tim Tszyu getting hit by the elbow, now you're seeing Sebastian Fundora use the jab a lot. Now, when he had Fundora had his fight against Cordell Booker, like you saw, at least for me, I saw Sebastian Fundora, how Sebastian Fundora's supposed to fight. Using that jab, building off of that jab, and then just working into the inside and wearing down the opponent. So that fight against Cordell Booker is the Sebastian Fundora that, we should, be seeing here in the super welterweight division. And I think you're going to see the same thing against Tim Tszyu. And Tim Tszyu, I don't feel like it's at a condition right now to kind of like be at the point where he could keep up with Sebastian Fundora at this particular point. So that's why I highly favor Sebastian Fundora for the win on Saturday night on that front, man. But yeah, that's like, mostly what I got on this front, man. Just looking forward to all of the fights. Like I said, you got the fights there in Las Vegas. You got, Bam Rodriguez in action against Fumulele Cafu, co-feature bout there. you know, you're going to have there in the super middleweight division, Diego Pacheco, rated number 1 in the WBO there. And he's going to be, you know, putting like his number 1 ranking there on the line in that one there against Trevor McCumbee. So that's a good co-feature bout they have there. I think they lost like 2 fights on that card in Frisco, Texas. Says we're supposed to have Dominique Crowder on the card, and I think they had like another fight that had they're trying to see if they could find a replacement opponent. But if not, then yeah, that fight could end up getting scrapped too. I forgot which one it was. I think, oh yeah, okay, I think they did because it's Ammo Williams. I think he's going up against. They got Ivan Vasquez, if I'm not mistaken. So that might be the one where they were able to find a replacement opponent for Ammo Williams. Like Ammo Williams back in there after his win that he had in March. So he's getting right back at it too. So like I said, a lot of action for people, fight fans to look forward to on Saturday. Hopefully y'all are able to catch it. Is there anything else you wanted to like talk about here, Box Academic?
The fight this weekend, Shakur, that was this weekend or last weekend?
Last weekend.
Okay, so I done missed 2 weeks then.
Yeah, you sure did.
Yep. So yeah, so I mean, what I will say is that I am happy for Shakur. I'm happy. You know, he made a point to be like, I'm gonna show everybody. I'm not gonna do what y'all say run. He stood there. Now, the only thing I will say is, you know, you can tell he sort of took the Floyd Mayweather playbook, you know, in terms of the shoulder roll and, you know, all of that. So, I mean, I kind of felt like I saw I can't call him a poor man's version because, I mean, his looked good too. But I saw, you know, I mean, you could tell he just watched Floyd, and at least he one of the ones who can actually implement it. Because, you know, a lot of people try to do that and they, you know, they can't do it and they just get like clocks. So, yeah, I felt like it was a good fight. I felt like, you know, him stepping to people, him sort of blocking, moving, and making people pay. Is a decent style, but at the end of the day, it's about winning. So I don't think he need to be trying to do that too often. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, make us happy, great, but that puts you in danger. And you know, do what you got to do to win. And so that's all I would say to him. Good job, but you know, don't let us get you in more trouble than what you probably need to be getting into. So that's the only thing I had to say on that one.
He kind of, you know, hit it at that after the fight, in that, you know, he, you know, kind of noticed that people enjoyed what he was doing there in the ring against William Zepeda. And I felt like that was a style that could really, you know, show what Shakur Stevenson could do. But he also like recognized that that's not, you know, the style that he wants to, you know, really have against a number of the fighters there in the lightweight division or whatever it is. So he said you're not going to see, you know, more of that here in the future, or at least initially. So that hit and not get hit, you know, using, you know, timely foot movements to step out of range, you'll probably see more of that from Shakur Stevenson in his future fights. But there against William Zepeda, like the activity of William Zepeda kind of like gives you the opportunity to, you know, see what's going on and switch up and like pick them off, and it makes it look like a very good performance out there. Secret Dance Move says, yeah, not once did Zepeda change it up. If you tried that against Tank, yeah, we night for Shakur. Listen, there were multiple times that I saw Zepeda there against Shakur, and Shakur was in the ropes, right? And Shakur was already showing his like guard, like his shoulder roll guard or whatever, right? So he could be like have his, well, I probably got to do it the opposite side since he's southpaw, but but y'all know what I'm talking about. So if he had his right hand or right arm crossed around his body and his left hand up, William Zepeda would throw the punch right to where his right hand is, and not even where he's open. I didn't see like no right hand, coming upstairs or nothing like that from William Zepeda. Nothing to where any part of Shakur's body was open. I didn't see any of that. He just threw right to Shakur's guard. Shakur didn't even have to work that much in order to block the punches from William Zepeda, because William Zepeda was just throwing right to the arms, and that was it. And also, I didn't see much emphasis behind a number of those punches from William Zepeda. That's the thing that I wanted to see from him, if he was going to have an upper hand in this fight. In that, yeah, you can have a whole lot of activity, but you got to mix the power behind your punches to throw off Shakur Stevenson. And you didn't necessarily see that from William Zepeda there on that front. You know what I mean? So it made it kind of too predictable for Shakur Stevenson, whether he was at a distance to the ropes or even on the inside, because even on the inside, he had almost like a show defense and kind of, caught a lot of the punches that William Zepeda was throwing. Yeah, man, he was overthinking it. It was crazy. You know what I mean? And
it made him so.
Yeah, go ahead.
It made him so comfortable that Shakur fought a style that he don't normally fight. And he said in his next fight, he ain't gonna fight that style no more. That's how comfortable he was.
That's crazy. and the wildest part is that the people, the trainers in the corner of William Zepeda thought that Zepeda was winning the fight well into like the 8th and 9th round. Because y'all seen a video clip of Devin Haney, because he was sitting there close to the blue corner, and he's like, "How do y'all got it so far?" And they said, "Hey, we got Zepeda winning 6 rounds." And I'm like, "Zepeda winning 6 rounds? What are y'all talking about?" So that's absolutely crazy, that man. But yeah, that's what I
got one more thing. One more thing. Berlanga. How the hell are you gonna get a Porky Medina landed on you? How the hell you let somebody land a Porky Medina on you? Like how the hell you let that happen? My man need to work on his defense.
Undisciplined, and he kind of played this whole thing like he completely overlooked Hamza Shiraz. Now the thing is, Hamza Shiraz, yeah, he's coming up from 160, but he still was like 21-0 or something like that, with like 19 or 18 of those wins by way of knockout. So you had to know that he had something behind him. You know what I mean? And with him being tall, it's like he had to really, go down in weight in order to make 160. You know what I mean? So they talking about, he had issues making weight, for the fight against Carlos Adames. So now here at 168, he don't have to, work that hard or as hard to, get down within the limit. And when you have something like that, at least for me, if you're like, say, for example, if you're like walking around at like 180, 185, and you're trying to get to 160, yeah, that's going to be a little bit difficult. It's going to take some more time. But if you just try to get to 168, hey, that could probably like cut off maybe about 5, 7 to 10 days of you trying to cut weight. And then you'll have more time in the gym just focusing on what you're doing there. And with with Hamza Shiraz being there with Andy Lee, he was learning from Andy Lee for all that time, and that just turned the tide of there for Hamza Shiraz, and it was there in his favor, man. And yeah, like I said, man, Berlanga got cooked, absolutely cooked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that might have definitely been a part of it, that he didn't have to work on losing more weight, and he could just focus on the craft. At the same time, we've seen Hamza Shiraz, whatever his name, fight multiple times. And I will say I wasn't very impressed with him in all of his other fights. Like, I wasn't like, outside of Turkey putting him on the fight cards, I wouldn't just, find myself just being like, I got to just catch him and watch his fights. But Berlanga essentially made him look like he a star. So there it is.
Yeah, and the way that Berlanga and Prosit, the initial press conference in fight week, he was like saying everything to everybody. Not just Hamza Shiraz, but it was almost like he just felt like Hamza Shiraz was an afterthought. He was going after Eddie Hearn. He was going after Oscar De La Hoya. He was going after other fighters there, and then like just completely ignoring Hamza Shiraz. And there in that fight, you kind of seen that he really was not ready for what Shiraz had for him. And yeah, he just got cooked for it. And to see that happen there in Queens, New York, just made it extra.
Were you at the fight?
Oh yeah, I was at the fight. Oh yeah.
Okay.
And
did he block one punch?
Huh?
Did he block one punch with anything other than his face?
I don't think so. It didn't look like it. But it's something to be in the crowd, where they have a whole bunch of Puerto Ricans. They're like, pack them up, Baker, pack them up, make them like a chopped cheese. And then to see that happen, it's like, oh shit, yo. It was like, oh man. It was crazy because in the first knockdown, Edgar Berlanga did the same thing that he did when he got knocked down against Canelo. Just like, hit his gloves on the chest and then, tried to get up and got up and everything, right? But his legs were not completely there. And then, he just got torched up once again. And then that second time, man, Hamza Shiraz thought he won because he had his hands up and things like that, man. I gotta look it up, man. Hold up real quick. Because after that second knockdown, I thought it was a wrap too. Because when I was watching that live, I was like, "Oh man, he was done." Because when he fell to the canvas at that time, I was like, "Oh no, he's cooked." You know what I mean? So I thought it was all but over at that point. You know what I mean? So it was just a real humbling experience, so to speak, there for Edgar Berlanga. But yeah, this was like, after that second knockdown, man, like everybody in the crowd there going crazy. And yeah, you see Shiraz, he had his, hands up, man. He thought, he had won it, like it was all the way over at that point, right? But Berlanga got up, you know what I mean? But I felt like the referee kind of helped out Berlanga there a little bit. I wouldn't care too much about, what Hamza Shiraz is doing if he's trying to get to the neutral corner or whatever it is. No, don't be concerned about all that. Just keep counting Edgar Berlanga and making sure Edgar Berlanga is good. You know what I mean? And make sure that it's there as fast as possible. You know what I mean? So once Hamza Shiraz can get back on him, then that's it. It would be a wrap. You know what I mean? He said, yeah, man, he hurt real bad on the second knockdown. Yeah, he did. He certainly did. And then it happened like so close to the end of the round. So you had, Berlanga going to his corner and, trying to have that minute to recover and everything like that. You know what I mean? So it kind of like made for a real interesting experience there for his corner, to try to get him to, get back in the mix and things like that. So you're trying to, give him instructions or whatnot. And whatever instructions they had, it wasn't going to work much for him anyway. You know what I mean? Because he didn't have his legs there, so to speak. And so, after about a couple of seconds, he just took the combo there from Hamza Shiraz, and yeah, it was a wrap. It was over. It was done. You know what I mean? So, Hamza Shiraz said, "Hey, listen, I guess I'm the new king of New York now." After beating up Edgar Berlanga, man. But yeah, that's what we had on that front, man. So, hey, we'll see what happens here with Edgar Berlanga, man. Someone like suggested maybe you could still have Edgar Berlanga versus Caleb Plant, and I say, hey, why not? Loser leaves town match. Edgar Berlanga versus Caleb Plant. I mean, we can still have that at 168 pounds. Why not? You know what I mean? Still have a grudge match between those two. So you could still have some good matches there at 168 pounds. You know what I mean? So I say, why not have Caleb Plant versus Edgar Berlanga. You know what I mean? I think that would be still good there on that front. You know what I mean? I gotta catch up. I probably gotta catch up with a couple of people that's on site there in Las Vegas for that fight week. As I was mentioning here at the beginning of the midweek report, they were having a whole thing with the media workouts, the public workouts there for the undercard. You did have appearances from Mario Barrios and Manny Pacquiao out there at MGM Grand. So we're just getting a little bit closer here for that fight. Tomorrow is supposed to be an undercard press conference there and things like that. So it should make for a good overall fight week there. It says the Damas has been on Shiraz. It's a minute. The ref waved it off. So I guess he's Damas is going crazy on social media there and whatnot. So hey, I don't know. Maybe Adames got to see if he's going to have a fight either, in a unification bout there against Janibek, or if he's going to fight against his mandatory challenger. Now, the mandatory challenger and Janibek have the same promoter, so they should be able to work out something. You know what I mean? I don't know. But yeah, Adames, we got to see you either in a unification bout or something. I don't know. Maybe because we know he ain't fighting no Erislandy Lara. I don't know why, but it don't look like he's going to fight him. So I don't know what's going on. Just looking forward to these fights. July 19th, Saturday. Like I said, it's going to start in the afternoon over here in the States. And also, like I said, we got something on DAZN, so y'all can check out the Benn Rodriguez fight on DAZN. And then, you got Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios on Amazon Prime pay-per-view. So a lot of action for y'all to catch up with. And then, we still got even more action the following week, the last Saturday of July. So whole bunch of action there, and it's something to try to keep up with all of it. But we'll try to do it here on the Boxing Source. Big thanks for everyone that's been able to watch. If you haven't done so, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers here on the Boxing Source YouTube channel. Y'all see how you could support. Hit the subscribe button. You got the whole thing with the Cash App or whatever it is to support the movement. We got the website, theboxingsource.net. I do have a couple of articles up as far as like fighting and photos from Saturday's events. I still have to put up a couple more for that, and then see about getting more articles up leading into the fights that we have for this Saturday. So y'all be sure to keep up on the boxingsource.net. All right. So with that being said, that's what I got here for the midweek report. Big thanks for the Box Academic for joining in, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.